Flying your drone at night is a pretty cool thing. And in this video, part 2 of the series, I'm going to go through how to do it legally, whether you're a hobbyist or a 107 pilot. If you're a 107 pilot, I'm going to go through how to apply for the waiver, the daytime waiver that you'll need to actually fly at night. And we're honored today to have Kevin to help us out with some of the finer points. Hi guys, this is Keith with Alien Drones. Thanks for stopping by. Always appreciate it. It's good to see you. So as I mentioned in the intro, this is part 2 of a series on how to fly your drone at night legally. Now whether you're recreational or 107, there are some rules that you need to abide by and certainly some guidelines, whether it's required or not, that you should follow to be safe to fly at night. Now I did apply for a 107 waiver and did receive it from the FAA recently, so I'm going to go through some of the questions, some of the information that they need, and how to apply for the waiver itself, how you get there and what you need to fill in. So we'll go through that process in a little more detail as we go along. So the first video in the series was specifically about lighting. So when we talk about lighting in this video, we're not going to go into detail. Just know you can click the link that pops up here, or I'll put the link in the description to that first video, so that when you want more details, you can reference that one as well. The third video is going to be about the photography aspect, getting some photos, some video and things at night. And that one will pop up as well once that one is finished. So let's just get right into night flying at drones, what's required. So from time to time, I do get asked if it is legal for a hobbyist to fly your drone at night. And the short answer is yes. Matter of fact, restrictions spelled out for that are much, much less than 107 pilot. So does that mean that the hobbyist doesn't have to follow any rules while the 107 pilot does? Well, of course not. I think the FAA did a little bit of a disservice in that they didn't give more details on how to fly at night legally if you're a hobbyist. For 107, they make you jump through all kinds of hoops, come up with a waiver, documentation, testing, a training, many things. However, if something happens when you're flying 107 and you followed your entire plan, you followed your waiver, they'll likely chalk it up to an accident. Yes, you still have to file with the FAA, but it will probably be chalked up to an accident. Now, if you're the same guy flying as a hobbyist and you don't have any documentation, you didn't do any research, you have nothing to show that you did any training on how to do this safely, and something happens, they're going to make an example of you. And I equate it to this. Let's say you're out for the evening, have a couple of beers with your dinner, no big deal, not legally drunk, anything like that. You're driving home and it's dark, a little bit foggy, and out of nowhere a bicycle squirts in front of your car. Now there's an accident, nobody's killed or seriously hurt, but there is an accident. And when the officer is interviewing you, he smells alcohol on your breath. Now is there going to be a higher likelihood you're going to be charged with a crime or some type of negligence because you didn't do everything you could to drive safely? I think so. It's the same thing with a hobbyist, even though the rules aren't spelled out and you don't have to follow the 107 guidelines exactly. If something happens, did you do your due diligence? Did you do everything you could to mitigate risk and fly safe? Well, if you don't have a plan, if you've never done any research, you did no training, you didn't even do anything with it at all, and you just went in the sky and flew because you didn't see any rules or regulations posted by the FAA, you're likely going to be considered negligent if something does happen. So, what I recommend is as I go through these rules and regulations for the 107 pilot, consider them rules and regulations that you should follow as a hobbyist. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to keep all the exact documentation. However, go through the motions. Try to fly safe. What are the different conditions at night that cause night blindness? What are you going to do if you lose connection with your UAV? What happens if somebody approaches you and it's dark? Those are the types of things that you need to know. So when I go through this, I recommend as a hobbyist, you do most of the things even though it isn't required. It's going to be better for you and safer for the industry. So let's just get right into the 107 waiver, what is required, and then we'll talk about the details as we go along. So on the FAA's website, they do have a document with a bunch of questions in it they expect you to answer in your application process. Now I'll put that link up here so you can see where it is and download it for yourself. However, note that there is questions to all different types of waivers in there, not just the 107 night flying at night waiver. So make sure you go to the section that is the 107.29 daylight operation, because that's what we're going to go through now. And some of the questions that they ask are kind of vague and redundant. It's just kind of a government thing. However, what I'll do is go through and explain how I answered them. Hopefully it helps a little bit in distinguish what they're really looking for, because my waiver application was approved. So let's just go right through these as quick as I can here. And the first one is describe how the remote pilot in command will maintain visual line of sight during the darkness. And the sub-question is, how will the RPIC be able to see the small unmanned aircraft or drone in the dark at the maximum planned flight distance from the RPIC or visual observer? Of course, the question they're asking here first is, how far do you plan on flying away? You plan on going a mile? They want to hear you say, we're going to maintain visual line of sight. So that needs to be stated in the application. The second part, of course, is the lighting. And again, I mentioned in video 1, we talk about the lighting. They want you to talk about what lighting you're going to have, high visibility lighting, anti-collision lighting, that will be visible from 3 statute miles. If you don't state you're going to have this lighting on there, they'll reject it because you didn't state it. So that's what they're asking for there. Part B is what procedures will the RPIC and VO follow in the event they lose sight. And this is fair. What happens if you're flying and you lose sight of it? Something happens, it gets dark, it's a little foggy, you get too far away. What they're looking for there is follow your plan. You're going to stop all movement. You're going to check your instrumentation, because that's going to give you orientation, location, altitude, and things. So you're going to stop, gain your bearings, find out where the UAV is based on your instrumentation. Then you're going to need to maneuver it back towards the RPIC so that you can gain visual sight again. And there's one other part of that, and that is if not only you lose visual sight, but maybe you lose communication, you want to state that you are going to set your home point ahead of time. And if something happens and you do lose communication or sight, you can have an automatic return to home set that follows the correct altitude and path so that you don't run into anything automatically. So they want to know that you're going to take care of that if something does happen. Second question is, describe how the RPIC will see and avoid other aircraft, people on the ground, and ground-based structures and obstacles. And A, how will the RPIC locate other persons, aircraft, obstacles, and structures in the dark? So what they're looking for here is that you're doing your research ahead of time. You're going to log how high the treetops are. Are there any lines or high lines in the way? Is there anything you need to be worried about flying over people? Is there a building or pole that you need to navigate around? And you document that and train everybody in your party, everybody that's involved, where those things are, so that even if you don't see the UAV, you're going to know where you can navigate safely. So you want to know you've done your research ahead of time, documented it, and have a plan to mitigate it so that it just happens. I just wanted to pop in here quick and ask if you found anything of interest so far. Click the like down below, really appreciate it. And if you're not a subscriber, make sure you do that, because then you'll be notified when the next videos come out. It's probably a good time to take a quick break, grab the beverage of your choice, and we'll be here when you get back. So part B then is, what will they do if other persons or aircraft are located during the flight? So what they're looking for here is that you're going to be training your people and they know what to do. So what specifically they want to do is make sure that anybody entering your flight area will be found or seen by your visual observer or anybody else on your team, and tell them that they have to stay out of this controlled area. The second part is about the aircraft, not the people. The aircraft, of course, is they want you to make sure that you state that you need to yield to aircraft, either unmanned or manned, either way. So make sure you state that in there as well. So C then says, how will they avoid hitting obstacles and structures at night? Of course, what they want to know here is that you do your research ahead of time. You need to state that you're doing your research in the daylight. You're going to log all the items that are tall or structures that are in the way, high lines, things like that, and heights of things so that you know your treetops are at a particular level. Because what you'll want to do also is state that you are going to set your return to home in case you lose connection, And that return to home will be set at a height that will avoid structures or treetops or things like that. So again, they want to know how you're going to take care of that in the night. And you're going to do that by researching during the day, logging it, and then training everybody on it beforehand, so that even if you can't see the UAV or you can't see the structure, you're going to know to navigate around it in some other way. Second part of that is if you can see the UAV and you can see that there's an obstruction or something, is that you're going to use proper scanning techniques, which if you've done 107, you know that the scanning technique is from the left to right in a certain degree, the correct scanning techniques so that you can identify any obstructions coming in the air, like another aircraft or a building, things like that, or a helicopter, so that you catch that very early. And D says, if flight operations occur in an area with lighting that's sufficient for the RPIC and the VO to see the SUA or drone or other obstacles, persons, and aircraft, how will they determine if the lighting is sufficient before the flight? Again, this comes into your research ahead of time, making sure that your light is adequate so that you can see what you need to, whether it's each other, whether it is maps, whether it is your instructions, if you're looking how to do something. So you want to make sure that if your research shows ahead of time that the lighting is adequate, you will double check it when you get there. And if the lighting is not adequate, you will provide spot lighting or whatever lighting is necessary to make sure that it is adequate at the time of flight. Sometimes you have to be careful, though, that if you do supply lighting, there is some nighttime visual effects that happen if you have bright lights and then you try to see things in the dark. So when we talk about that lighting a little bit further down here, you'll know what I'm talking about, but you want to make sure that when you're actually doing the piloting that you're not exposing yourself to super bright lights and then trying to see something dim in the sky because it'll make your eyes go goofy. So just keep that in mind. So number 3 is describe how the RPIC will be able to continuously know and determine the position, altitude, attitude, and movement of the SUA or drone. A says, how will the RPIC be able to tell which direction the SUA drone is pointing or flying in the dark? And B says, while keeping eyes on the drone, how will the RPIC continuously know the current real-time geographic location, altitude, attitude, deck angle, pitch, etc., and the direction of the flight of the SUA or drone? So the first part of that is that you're going to want to state that the equipment has a wireless transmission to your device so that the pilot can see via instrumentation the altitude, attitude, direction, bearing, tilt, all those types of things. They want to know that instead of just looking at lights, for instance, and trying to estimate all this, that you actually have a wireless instrumentation view that the RPIC has control of. Now, the second part of that is going to be lighting, and I'm going to leave that to Kevin, who's going to go through and talk about the lighting. A little bit of a review of what we have in video 1, but just so you know, he'll fill you in on the details. Kevin? Yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah, no worries. So the anti-collision lighting, the strobe lighting that Keith talked about in video number 1, that will take us 3 statute miles as far as visibility that they're talking about. The other part that we talked about in that video was that the orientation lights, the kind of the red and the green, were on the drone itself. But the problem with those lights is that, yes, they will work, and as long as you can see them, that will be fine. The difficulty is they are much less than 3 statute miles of visibility because they're just dimmer. They're a lot dimmer. I mean, you can see them in the sky, but you kind of lose them. So if your flight path only takes you far enough to where you can easily see, or certainly see them at some point, so you know orientation and direction of the drone, then those lights will be adequate. However, if you're going a little bit farther, because those lights will limit the distance that you can go legally because you won't be able to see them, if you want those to be farther, more like 3 statute miles, or, that's probably going to be beyond visual line of sight, so that wouldn't work, but farther than the regular lights will let you see, you can buy that 3-pack of that strobe light and then use that red and green lens that come with it and put 1 strobe on the top for the white for your 3 statute miles, and then 1 red and 1 green, whether it's on the front or the back, it doesn't matter. The FAA does not dictate exactly where the green and the red has to be, if they have to be on the left, on the right, front, back. It doesn't matter according to the FAA. That will be taken care of in your document where you train people. And if you have all red on the front or all red on the back, or left is red and right is green, like you see in a lot of aircraft or boats or anything, no matter which way you have it, as long as you train on it, and all the people that are in your group are trained that if you see red, you know it's coming towards you, and if you see green, you know it's going away from you, for instance, that's what you need to know. You need to identify the orientation. But just wanted to make sure I clarified that, yes, you have to have the orientation lights, but it doesn't matter which is red and which is green. You can use the ones on there that come on the drone according to the FAA. Yeah, good point. Good? Yeah, nice job. Cool. Yeah. Thanks. So the fourth point is what procedures will be followed to ensure that all required persons participating in the operation have knowledge to recognize and overcome visual illusions caused by darkness and understand physiological conditions which may degrade night vision. We talked about that just a little bit. And again, I think this is where it's really important that as a hobbyist, even though you may not be required to have a test or do all this kind of stuff and do this type of research, it's really your best interest to do it. Because before I started searching this stuff, I didn't know that that really existed. I never really thought about it. I would have just taken off into the sky. But not knowing that these weird visual illusions come in, I might have freaked out, and got all panicked over something that I could have trained for ahead of time. So it's really important to kind of do your due diligence here and be safe, be responsible. So anyway, so A then is, how will the RPIC and any participants in the operation demonstrate knowledge about night operation risks such as overcoming night visual illusions, limitations to night vision, and conditions that can affect night vision? Now the key here is, the question about this is demonstrate knowledge. How are you going to demonstrate the knowledge? The government is all about the verbiage, right? And they're looking for something very specific. In this case, demonstrate means, how do you check somebody's knowledge? You take a test and you see if they understood it. So this means there's going to be a test. So you need to write down, yes, we're going to take a test. And that means you're going to have to create a test. I did. It's kind of cool. Putting all these conditions out there, finding out how you react to them, how you either solve them once they're happening or prevent them from happening in the first place. So it's pretty cool. So how do we get this information? Well, that kind of goes into part B. How will this knowledge be obtained and who will document it? The key there is knowledge obtained. So how is this knowledge gained? And two, who will document it? So the obtained portion is the RPIC, or the responsible person, meaning me or you, in this case, is going to make sure you gather the information, and that information is this reference material. You're going to write procedures from Chapter 13 of the FAA Helicopter Flying Handbook and Chapter 8 of the Medical Facts for Pilots. Now, between these two documents, it has a lot of good information in there that you're going to be able to extract and train all your people on, and develop your test from. Again, the test isn't in there, but you're going to be able to make some type of a multiple choice question test that you're going to be able to apply to prove that people in your party understand the information and know how to do what they're supposed to do. Then, of course, the who will document it question, the second piece of that, is the responsible person, or the RPIC. Again, state this stuff in the information in your waiver. Who's responsible? The RPIC is going to be responsible for documenting this information. That's what they're asking. Just answer their question. The third part is, how will the responsible person verify the knowledge has been obtained and documented? So the responsible person verifies that by looking at the test, grading the test, and then correcting it to 100% with the people that are involved in the flight. So that means if you have Billy Bob or Kevin here that got 9 out of 10 questions, let's say. Hey. No, I know you got them all right. I know. Just for instance, if got 9 out of 10, we'll correct the 10th one with the person to make sure they understand why they got it wrong. Because we want to make sure it's not about testing somebody and penalize them. It's about displaying their knowledge and making sure that if there's something incorrect, they know what to do and it's fresh in their mind, so that when the opportunity or the problem arises, they know how to react properly. So answer to that is going to be 100% test verification. Number 5 then is going to be describe how the visual conspicuity of the SUA or drone will be increased to be seen at a distance of 3 statute miles. So that is about the lighting, the anti-collision lighting, about 3 miles, which Kevin went through. And that is in that video number 1, again, how to do that. The only thing I would add here is there's a second piece to this, and it's kind of a trick question in the regard that we're going to use. So I'm going to read those. So the second part is, will the SUA or drone be visible for at least 3 miles at night in the location where the RPIC will operate? And 1 is, if yes, how will you accomplish this? And if no, why do other aircraft not need to be able to see your SUA or drone from at least 3 miles? I say it's kind of a trick question because in the context that we are going to be flying our UAV at night in the sky, knowing it's probably a drone, then it's going to be needed to be seen 3 statute miles. There is no reason where you can say, nobody needs to see us because we're not important enough, we're too small, anything like that. Anything like that will just get it rejected. So don't do that. Now, I'm sure there are exceptions and people who are a lot more knowledgeable about this stuff than I. Some long-term pilot probably knows there's some reason, but maybe you're operating in a tunnel, maybe it's underground, maybe you're under a bridge or something like that, to where there's no way that anybody needs to see you because there's no way that they can hit you unless they're on the ground. Something like that. Maybe there's an exception. But I'm going to say, for the purposes of what we're doing in the waiver with a regular drone at night, that would be a reason to get rejected or have to submit a bunch more information, and I wouldn't do it. I would just say, yes, it does need to comply. Yes, you can see it 3 statute miles because of the anti-collision lighting strobe that we installed, and be done with it. That would be it. So with that, that is all of the questions. So all that information then is going to need to be compiled and put together in your submittal to the FAA for your waiver. Now this is if you're going to be doing the 107 approval. So the hobbyist for the moment don't need to submit anything, but hopefully they've done all this information up to this point. So they can document it, have all their information there for their safety. Now, if you're going to submit it, and just hang with me, if you're going to submit it, you go to the website under the 107, and I'll pull up a couple of those screens here, is you go and put your information, all the stuff that we just talked about, in a nice textual form. You don't have to answer questions. Don't put down question 1 is this and this is how I'm going to answer it. Just say, I'm going to be flying at night to do inspection of a bridge, and I'm going to take some photographs in the evening of a train, track far away. And I'm going to be doing it in this area, and I'm going to be doing it with this lighting, and I'm going to have my people trained, and we're going to take a test, and we're going to have lighting on. Put it in a text form, in a kind of a story format. And of course, you're going to need to identify where you want to do this. So they like to have latitude and longitude coordinates, specifically where you're going to be. So they kind of want to know latitude, longitude. Now, in addition to that, I said that I would like to be able to do this nationwide. So I wasn't pinpointed to a specific latitude and longitude, because who wants to go to one single place and do one time and then never be able to do night flying again unless you get another waiver? So I wanted to do it nationwide, and I wanted to do multiple things with it. So put that in there as far as your purpose and location to assist you in the waiver process. Then of course you're just going to go through, fill out all the other information that it asks for, and when you're all done, all is said and done, you're just going to submit. Now it takes maybe 30 days, 60 days, could be up to 90 days before them to return your information if it's approved or denied. Whew. So that was really a quick overview of the flying your drone at night, the regulations, the rules, how to be safe and responsible, even if it isn't a requirement for hobbyists. So hopefully you found some use to this video. If there was something you learned, I'd appreciate a like. And if Kevin was helpful, maybe we'll have him come back. So put in the comments if you think Kevin should be back, or if he should maybe find some other line of work. So with that, appreciate your time. And until next time and next video, good flying.